The dense suspension of copies of 2007 to 2010 provokes a dynamic driving style, but the rubber steering interferes with enjoyment. After 2010, the chassis settings have changed a bit. And nevertheless, Mazda 6 behaves confidently and stably. In general, the Mazda 6 suspension endures the hardships while traveling on bad roads. Its components calmly reach up to 100,000 kilometers. But then it will take a lot of money to sort it out. Consumables, racks, stabilizer bushings and steering tips, which traditionally have to be changed more often. The rear suspension is a slightly modified design of its predecessor. It is hardy, simple and inexpensive to repair. After 80 to 100,000 kilometers, it may be necessary to replace the front wheel bearings. And after 150,000 kilometers, the right inner CV joint, or one of the outer ones, may require replacement. Closer to 80 to 100,000 kilometers, problems with the steering rack are not uncommon, and sometimes the power steering also fails. There are knocks, clicks, vibrations and excessive effort when turning the steering wheel in one of the directions. Mazda 6 did not get rid of the disease of its predecessor, the souring of the rear calipers. The disease manifests itself after 120 to 150,000 kilometers. The optional tire pressure monitoring system, TPMS, also causes minor inconvenience. In addition to the loss of communication between the sensors and the machine, it can gradually poison the air from one of the wheels. Electric's Mazda 6 does not belong to the strengths of the 6. Most often, there are malfunctions in the operation of the central lock and the factory head unit of the audio system. The mass wire corrodes rather quickly, which makes it difficult to successfully start the engine. In addition, many owners complain about quickly burning out lamps for external lighting, including rear LED lights. For your information, rare H9 and P11 lamps are used in the headlights. Simultaneous disabling of ABS, DSC and the dynamic stabilization system is associated with a loss of communication between the controller and one of the ABS sensors. There are several reasons. Most often, a lot of dirt collects on the magnetic tape of the wheel bearing. But there may be problems with both the contacts and the wiring of the sensors. Less often, you have to change the sensors themselves or the wheel bearing, due to belt wear. In cars of 2008, the problem with the trunk lock is quite common. It lives its own life, independently deciding when to open the lid. It's all about the leaky button, where moisture gets in, closing the contacts. After the button was improved, and the disease was practically cured. However, similar symptoms also occur when the wiring is broken inside the protective corrugation between the trunk lid and the body. Nothing bad can be said about gasoline power units. Moreover, regardless of the version of the motor, it is quite possible to count on exemplary reliability. In all gasoline engines, Japanese engineers have used a timing chain drive that does not require maintenance. Among the common problems, wear of the right support, cushion, of the motor and failure of the oxygen sensor, lambda probe, can be distinguished after 100 to 150,000 kilometers. The base 1.8-liter engine is too weak, and the 2.5-liter 170 horsepower, for its performance, is quite voracious, more than 12 L/100 kilometers. The golden mean is a 2-liter engine. It is quite economical, 9 to 10 L/100 kilometers, and dynamic, 0 to 100 kilometers/h in 10 seconds. Unfortunately here, after 100,000 kilometers, the flaps in the intake manifold can knock. It's all about the wear of the damper drive lever, made of plastic. But what was said above about gasoline units does not apply to diesel modifications of the Mazda 6. You should be especially careful with a 2-liter diesel engine, 2.0 MZRCD. The risk of costly repairs is too high, especially for 2007 to 2010 vehicles. Most of the problems are caused by the DPF filter. If you drive frequently for short distances or operate in the city, the engine oil level will increase excessively. This is due to the ingress of diesel fuel into the oil during the burning of the DPF filter. As a result, oil can get into the intake, which is dangerous by engine runaway, uncontrolled increase in speed. But rather, this is an exception to the rule. Much more serious is the fact that diesel fuel, getting into the oil, dilutes it, the lubricating properties deteriorate, and the wear of rubbing parts accelerates. In 2008, the software was changed, thanks to which the indicator warns in advance when the critical oil level is exceeded, which, in turn, reduces the risk of problems. There are known cases of intercooler rupture. A loud whistle appears and engine power drops. In addition, mechanics pay attention to problems with the oil pump. It is driven by a gear located on the crankshaft. The gear teeth wear out pretty quickly already after 60,000 kilometers. Often, wear products clog the oil intake in the crankcase, which can eventually lead to engine seizure. The cause of the problem is not only a design flaw, but also an overestimated oil change interval by the manufacturer. How to deal with it? Change the oil as often as possible, at least once every 8,000 kilometers. And every 3 to 4 replacements, remove the sump and clean the oil intake. Mechanics are confident that this will significantly extend the life of the motor. Another point is the Denso injectors that cannot be restored. And yet, the reliability of Denso injectors is considered acceptable, but with washers, everything is not so good. They need to be changed regularly. Problems with injectors will be indicated by uneven engine operation, which is not uncommon for this model. Complaints about floating speed and jerks during acceleration are not isolated cases. Timing drive 2-liter diesel belt type. As a rule, there are no problems with the timing, but it is better to change the belt prudently every 90,000 to 100,000 kilometers. A variable geometry turbocharger is quite reliable, but in the event of a repair, it will require high costs. Due to the weakness of the engine on the bottoms, the clutch and flywheel are not among the expendable components. For everyday use, the more reliable 185 horsepower 2.2-liter turbo diesel is much better, but Mazda6 with this unit are more expensive. It is important to note that the Japanese used a completely different DPF filter here, with which there are no problems, unlike the 2.0-liter diesel. The only thing you should know is about snags with the timing drive. There are cases of stretching of the camshaft drive chain. Extraneous noise appears. For your information, diesel modifications with power from 163 horsepower provide good dynamics. Mazda 6 owners often complain about a manual transmission. There are problems with switching. Synchronizers are to blame. The service life of the clutch is about 150 to 200,000 kilometers. Despite the absence of an official recommendation for changing gear oil in a mechanical box, all mechanics unanimously advise doing this no later than 100,000 kilometers. Much more often, an oil change is necessary for the machine every 60,000 kilometers. By 80 to 100,000 kilometers, many owners of Mazda 6 with automatic transmission note the appearance of kicks when switching from third to fourth. The reason is the development inside the box body. After 100 to 150,000 kilometers, another danger awaits the owners: the ingress of coolant into the box, which leads to dehydration of the friction clutches. The reason is the destruction of the heat exchanger fitting,